Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the first episode of The Inquiry, a program that discusses Islam and politics and that interviews scholars, movers, and experts in various issues. In today's episode, we interviewed Mr. Lukman Sheriff, a well-renowned lawyer from Malaysia who is taking Israel to the International Criminal Court for its actions in Palestine. We discussed the process, whether it is transparent, whether it is enforceable, and why are Malaysians so interested in the issues affecting Palestine. Have a listen, and inshallah, we can all benefit from his insights. Assalamualaikum. Today we are here with Mr. Lukman Sheriff. He's the partner in a top law firm in Malaysia, specialized in energy and utilities. And Mr. Lukman is also the head of the legal committee for My Aqsa and president of Maqsa. Yeah. Maybe you can tell us a bit about some of these organizations that you're working with. Like, for example, like Maqsa. What does Maqsa do?
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you, Brother Zulfikar. It's been a while. I've not seen you. Okay, so My Aqsa, I think a number of things actually. My Aqsa and Maqsa and My Aqsa. Maqsa is a coalition of about 60 organizations involved in the involved in the process at the Geneva United Nations Human Rights Commission. It's a UPR process, Universal Periodic Review of the human rights violations in Malaysia. So every periodic, say for about 4 or 5 years, NGOs are entitled to submit breaches or violations to the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and there the government would need to answer why there is a violation in Malaysia. So Maqsa has been involved in that, but we are in a way very different from Komango. There are certain angles which Komango did not cover, so we covered that area, in particular looking into grievances by Muslims in Malaysia, notwithstanding it's a majority Muslim country. Say, for example, stateless Muslims in Sabah, for example, right? So we will bring all these issues up to the United Nations, and then we will follow up with the government on their compliances of the Human Rights Charter, essentially. So that is in relation to Maqsa, which is an umbrella of about 60 organizations specializing in the human rights process. Essentially, again, I'm repeating, presenting our findings for the Universal Periodic Review at Geneva. Okay. So that's Maqsa. While my Aqsa, My Aqsa is an organization, but I spearhead in relation to the legal section. So there, I'm specializing. I'm focusing essentially on bringing violations of human rights on the Palestinian people to the International Criminal Court, which is ICC. We collect evidences. We go to Palestine, collect evidences, and then try to bring these evidences to the ICC for them to indict Israel, essentially. So we are opening this avenue for the Palestinian government to pursue the ICC avenue.
So I think there was some discussions whether Malaysia has legal standing to pursue this case in the ICC, especially in relation to the non-ratification of the statute. So how will you explain that?
I think I always explain like this. US is not a signatory, yet they can claim they pursue violation of war crimes under ICC. So essentially, to us, the argument is not actually that material. What is happening is actually the prosecutor has already opened up, is already entitled to open up and investigate violations of human rights in Palestine. So we were involved in the pre-trial chambers, and the chambers came to a conclusion that they have a locus to investigate and pursue violations of the Rome Convention. So what happened after that is actually they are now seeking evidences, whoever who can bring the evidence to them so that they can prosecute. Right. So that is what we are doing. We are filling that vacuums in order for the ICC to move forward.
Okay.
So whether Malaysia is a signatory or not signatory, so far it has not been material. Key thing is actually whether Palestinian actually can bring a case against Israel to the ICC, which has been decided. And I think and when we my AXA, we do this with the Palestinian embassy. So we collate evidence with the Palestinian embassy and the PLO and the Palestinian government in Palestine. So from there, we bring the matter to the ICC.
Okay. What do you expect to happen with this process?
But personally, or okay,
Yeah.
my hope is actually at least I think in the case of Putin, even though Russia is not a signatory to Rome Statute, they have issued a warrant of arrest against Putin. So if a warrant of arrest can be issued against Netanyahu, it will actually hamper or restrict his movement around the world. Maybe he is confined to only certain countries, right? That is a big hope actually. There is a more problematic issue at ICC. But I think as far as my AXA is concerned, we will try to capitalize on whatever avenue at ICC that we can.
How real is this possibility of a warrant of arrest for Netanyahu? Is this a hope or is this an expectation?
All right. So I tell you a bit of history. I think the current prosecutor at ICC is Karim Khan, right? But before that, it was Bensouda, right? So under Bensouda, she pursued vigorously to the point that she brought the matter to the chambers and obtained a judgment to say that they have jurisdiction over the Israeli government. So if it had been under Bensouda, I'm quite certain it will proceed. But then what happened is that the US government was not happy. So they took action against Bensouda and they changed the prosecutor, right? So it's not that straightforward right now. But I think what we need to do is, from my AXA perspective, we bring the evidence there, a chain of evidence, then we publicize it to show that we have given to the current prosecutor, right, and put pressure on him. Why, despite all this evidence, is he not pursuing the matter? That is one angle. But I know some in the European countries, I think they have taken a civil action, some court actions against ICC itself. But I think it's fine. Both either ways, I'm fine. If they can pursue that, all these are adding pressure to the ICC to pursue the matter, right? So it's not an easy process, but I think like Palestinian has been doing, going to ICJ, for example, going to the General Assembly, right? So even though it's very difficult to enforce, but at least in under the letters of the law, their rights are preserved. They can call on this narrative to say that the Israelis are the aggressor, occupying powers. So from from these judgments, I think although it's not easy to enforce, right? Almost impossible to enforce at the Security Council. That at least there is a moral position on the for the Palestinian government. So similarly here, ICC, if we put enough pressure on the current prosecutor, I hope, inshallah, he has no choice but to proceed, or either that maybe there will be a change in personality as well. So that's our angle. We try to push it. From my AXA angle, since I'm looking at ICC, that's the angle that we're looking at right now.
Okay. So you say that the previous prosecutor was removed from her position. So how there's all this criticism about the United Nations.
Definitely.
And that it is too susceptible to political interference by the major powers. How much of the ICC process is independent of these powers?
I do believe the ICC itself is very independent, right? When it's being tried and heard, it will be very independent. The judges are independent. The issue is always who is going to bring the case to the courts, right? The prosecutor must be able to bring the case to the court. I think that needs political will. I think more more fairness, I think, in bringing the case. I think not. I mean, just pursue in the case of justice actually. And if a prosecutor pursues that, I think it's doable.
So is the process itself transparent? Will it be such that if they are given the sufficient evidence, they will have to proceed, or can they still go like, you know what, we have to balance it out, and is there room for them to maneuver, or is it
definitely I think the discretion whether to pursue or not to pursue a case is always a discretionary power of the prosecutor, right? But I think if we put enough evidence in public, right, then it will put pressure on the prosecutor on why he is not proceeding with the case itself, right? I think we need to push that. I think with a court case coming in from Europe, I think he is under more pressure to do this. So probably if we submit this evidence and it's known by the other lawyers also, they will also put pressure on the ICC itself. That is my hope and intent on pursuing this.
So what I see is that it is actually very much a political process, where you are trying to assert or exert some pressure to make sure that he does what is right, which is to pursue this action. And at the same time, because it is possibly unenforceable, I don't think that even if Netanyahu, even judgment is found against him, it's not really likely that it can be enforced against him. But you're looking at some political high ground for the Palestinians. Would that be fair?
Yes, but I think for me, a warrant of arrest being issued is also a victory, right? It restricts the government, Netanyahu. Not only Netanyahu, it's actually putting the whole machinery from the commander on all the way down under prosecution, you see. So so it won't be only Netanyahu, will be maybe other generals as well, if we can name them, right? So all these are under scrutiny. So if their names are mentioned, I think they have difficulty of going outside Israel, right? I think that is a moral victory in that sense already, right? Then the trial will take a long time. I do admit, right? And whether to enforce or not to enforce, so long as Netanyahu is in Israel, maybe it's very difficult to enforce at all, right? But at least there is a recognition that is a criminal action being judged by a court, and no one can dispute that Israel is actually committing a crime, a war crime against humanity. So it is indisputable, right? So whatever their spins that they are trying to do, it will be very difficult for them to counter after this. I think more difficult for them to counter.
Israel has committed a lot of atrocities over the years.
Yeah.
They have massacred so many. This is not the first time that they do it. Of course, this is
plenty.
Yeah, this is like the a much larger scale than previous times, but they have done it before. So what makes this different in terms of taking the legal action? Why not previously?
Oh, I think if you see the current narrative that is out, right? Say, for example, at the United Nations, there is a special rapporteur just on the Palestinian issue. I've attended them. All these are recorded at the United Nations Human Rights Commission. See, all these abuses are recorded it's important that it is recorded. And then that is why now human rights groups are saying there is apartheid, then there is actually an ethnic cleansing happening in the state of Palestine, right? So this narrative is a very important. Otherwise, it's very difficult for if Palestinians want to argue this, people may not believe in them. But these are by third-party human rights group asserting the violations of the Israelis, right? And this has been going around our media, and this has been what has been successful. I see in the current round of the social media, all these messages have been put out based on United Nations Charter, ICJ cases, United Nations human rights findings, right? Special repertoire. We see this on TikToks, on social media, and all these are helpful. If I can add one more ICC, it would be better still. So these are accumulation of various narratives against Israel, which will make it more indisputable, very difficult for them to challenge in the future.
So it is because what is going on is now the public is more aware of it, and that is why it is more legitimate.
No, I think we must understand like this. I think the international law operates. Okay, it's unlike the national law. Whether we like it or not, international law operates on who is strong or might is right. If you see how international operates, even ICJ, if you have a dispute at International Court of Justice, if you want to enforce anything, you have to go to the Security Council. Now, our Security Council is actually favoring a number of big powers, in particular US, who is backing Israel, right? So far as US is there, and so far as US is backing Israel, I think it is almost impossible for us to enforce any legal sanctions made by the ICJ, ICC, and the rest, I think, right? So that is the state of nature of the international law and international relations, right? So what we have at international law and international, we must push as much as we can, and then we push it through the Security Council. And for US to change, I think it has to be the people from the US who demand that the US take a different position. So unfortunately, this is a roundabout way to enforce. But the problem with the international polity is actually they have a right to veto even though they are conflicted with the issue, right? So this is a system that we have, and we are just working around it.
I looked at some videos coming through from Malaysia of all the demonstrations in Malaysia, Indonesia, London, Melbourne, Sydney, in the States. Like millions of people are demonstrating against what Israel is doing. But even in terms of international relations, I think we recognize that politics is still local.
Yes,
So like those people who are demonstrating, let's say in Australia, is not because their demonstration in Melbourne will affect Israel, but they are trying to affect the Australian government's policies towards Israel. Right
correct, correct.
now, that being the case, Malaysia does not really have diplomatic relationships with Israel.
Yeah.
Uh, Given that, how much can um, Malaysian policies, or even the pressure from Malaysia, how much can that affect what Israel does?
Oh, I think we can do many things actually on international relations. Okay, first on the government itself, actually they can actually persuade other similar like thinking countries like OIC organizations or ASEAN or number within the group to take some position, or maybe work with Indonesia to take some position, right? So this will build up the consensus against Israel, right? But on a social level, actually, we can narrate out in social media so that it can influence other countries as well, right? Whatever we can. It is not. It is still indirect. It doesn't have a direct effect on Israel right now, but I do think a combination of all these pressures is putting pressure on Israel itself. And we are seeing now some changes of those supporters of Israel, for example, Canada, recently asking for maximum restraint of Netanyahu. So all these, I think, it's a combination. It's a very difficult, roundabout way to do things, but we don't have much choice because the Israeli lobbies are very dominant in the news media, right? We are not able to narrate the Palestinian position. So because of that, we have to go the roundabout way of social media, demonstration all across the world, so that to say that we are united against Israel.
So if apart from the demonstrations and the boycotts, I think Malaysian boycott is a different level altogether. Uh,
Mhm.
I've been reading a lot about the boycotts, and it's interesting. But apart from demonstrations and boycotts, and Malaysia trying to affect change through its indirect links, what else can be done through Malaysia or by Malaysians?
Okay. That is why, for me, this is where my AXA can come in, actually. We're quite close to the Palestinian embassy. Actually, they never thought of bringing this case to ICC, for example. So we help them, the Palestinian government, to bring this matter to ICC. I think because I'm a legal background, so whatever legal platform. But if you're in another sector, probably there is an avenue there to assist in probably in the business side. That one I'm not that clear, but from the legal side, there was an avenue, so that I thought we can bring that one up.
Okay. Apart from the fact that most Palestinians are Muslims and a lot of Malaysians are Muslims, what is the connection between Malaysia and Palestine? Why do Malaysians feel so strongly about Palestine?
Oh, it's the oppression actually. So when I went there, it's actually then I realized it's not only about Muslims. One is the Muslim affinity. I think majority Muslims, but I think the way the Palestinians have been oppressed, ethnically cleansed, and if you can see, it's actually a genocide happening, right? How they have been abused and restricted all over the years. And the thing about Malaysia, we are able to see the narrative of the Palestinian in our media, except for some social media, there has been restriction. But in generally, the mainstream media covers that angle. So that's how I think it has been helpful.
Is there any um, Israeli lobby operating in Malaysia?
Oh, good question. I heard about it, but so far I've not encountered it personally. Lah. I presume there is. I think generally from the peninsula, I think I seldom come across, but I read once in a while. There are some, what should I say, inconsistent narrative coming out. So I'm not so sure whether there is an Israeli narrative. But I do think there are, like in US, there are issues on, probably, I do not know, but maybe in US from evangelist group, right? So I do not know whether there's an influence here or not. But so far in Malaysia, it has been very consistent to be pro-Palestine.
In even looking at Singapore, right? I'm trying to see how it relates with Malaysia. Before this, usually, if you look at those who support the Palestinian cause and those who try to speak for the Palestinians, has usually been the Muslims, right? But the last month, I've seen a lot of non-Muslims also coming forward to declare the support for Palestine and saying that Israel has gone too far.
Yes.
Is that similar to what is going on in Malaysia?
Yes, definitely. I think all across. But I think the consciousness in Malaysia has been there quite a long time, right? I think, without doubt, I think all the world has been like that. But maybe probably I can say more of the younger generations now are more aware how brutal the Israeli government is actually. I think the younger generation have a better an eye opener. But the elder generation, they have always, to me, they have always been they are quite alert of what is happening in Palestine, right? But I do see across the world, it's beyond the Muslim concern right now. It's about humanity. As I always say, it relates to the human rights as well. There is a clear transgression or violations of basic human rights. The section of a society is being oppressed and ethnically cleansed. So that's the issue, and I've been writing on this for quite some time. The good thing right now, everybody can see it. They don't have to justify anymore.
Yeah. But there are still some who promote the Israeli narrative.
There are some.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, continue.
Yeah. How do you see that? What will be the justification for those who promote that? Not speaking to you as a lawyer, just asking you, where do you see
I
that
think
sense coming?
that angle.
Yeah.
That angle. I
Yeah.
think it's. I think. Okay. I think it emanates. I think the issues are quite similar to the US actually. It's one is about media, which media they read. So if they are influenced by that media or a particular media, they are not able to see other point of view. And the media in the West has been controlled by Israelis lobbies, right? Even the government, I would say, is controlled by them. So I think they are very much influenced by that. And another factor in US is also the evangelical movement as well. They have a similar aspiration, right? So that is overseas, and I think some of them probably are connected and quite attuned to that thinking. But I think in expressing it publicly, some may want to, but they know there is a backlash. There will be a tirade there will be a backlash on their opinions. I think that is why it's quite muted, though there are occasionally a few which runs contrary to the pro-Palestinian narrative.
What would you say to those who will then argue that we take our position because of the media that we subscribe to? That
No, I
they
think
will say that we are similar to that.
yeah, but I think it's not okay. One is media. The media is actually should be fair, right? So what is happening now? The media is not fair, but because of social media, we are open to various various kind of thinking. That is one. But the main thing is actually when we see the media, people now realize the actual brutality happening on the ground. It's not like the narrative. They can see what's happening, and that is the truth of the matter, right? And then you take that as a truth. That is why there is a clear transgression that people cannot live to what Israel is doing right now, right? So I think we may be right to say it's influenced by media. I think all around the world, people are influenced by media. But at the end of the day, whether it can move or shape your view is actually what is happening on the ground, whether it's if it is not too okay, if it is not too brutal, maybe people can accept it. But this is dehumanizing and very brutal, right? It's a genocide essentially, right? It's maybe some will argue, may disagree with it. It's just like going to be another Holocaust. So. So this I think people cannot accept. They can see themselves, Muslim or non-Muslims, that this shouldn't be happening at this moment in time.
Yeah. What do you hope will come out of this, from this whole process, and
The
even
current process,
what will be your ideal outcome?
Ideal outcome? Oh, ideal outcome is for some of the countries, I think will support Israel. The first one, we recognize ceasefire, right? A ceasefire, a pure ceasefire. With ceasefire, they recognize there is actually a clear transgression happening, committed by Israel, and that is actually it's a step on Israel itself. Secondly, if the US citizens can change the position of the US government, this is a major, if they can, that means they have weakened the Israelis' lobbies in the US, which have a stronghold on their politics, actually. And I hope also from here, people now realize the mainstream media in the West is not ethical, not projecting a true and fair view of things. And there is a change in how news media is reported. It's still quite far, but I hope it can be done, because if more voices, pressure is there, right? So with ceasefire, after this, I hope after with the ceasefire, a third party verification can be done. UN rapporteur can come in and investigate the matter, apart from humanitarian angle, right? And actually investigate verify what's happening on the ground, whether there is bunkers or underground tunnels or all these unproven assertions, right, to justify the killing of the people. And if there's enough will, enough pressure, I hope ICC can bring this matter up, and actually at the end make all the people accountable for the atrocities.
Okay.
For that's too big an idea, but I think it's a consequence.
One last question. So that was a process that you're looking at.
Yeah.
What will be the ideal outcome for the Palestinians in terms of their political system, or their social political system? Do you think that they should then proceed with the way that they've been governing themselves? Should they be under international jurisdiction? Should there be a two-state solution? What do you think would be an ideal for the Palestinians?
This is not easy to answer, but I think the way forward, there must be a political arrangement between the Palestinian and the Israeli, but not under the US auspices, but under UN auspices, so that they can achieve a sustainable governance, be it two state or be it one state. I'm I leave it to the Palestinian people. And there is UN actually peace corps or army actually monitoring or the implementation of the accord, right? So no longer under the bias US or European auspices, which have been one-sided for all the settlement that have been proposed, right? And I hope the Palestinians, if we can bring to account what is the Israelis have done, I think Palestinians have a better morality and leverage to stand ground against the Israeli in the coming negotiation.
Okay, sure. Is there any final word for any of our viewers who may be interested to see how they can help the Palestinians further?
Wow. Oh, okay. I think right now I am seeing a fight back by the the Israeli lobbies, right? In trying to portray their narrative out. I think we have been very successful because we have been sharing the social media stories, right? So that one we need to continue to tell others what is happening and to continue pressuring the governments, in particular the Western governments, to change its stand. And then with our main objective being attaining or securing a ceasefire. I think that is very urgent at the moment. So we must only show to the government that this is what we want. This is what we want to see the government pursuing. And so as long as the government pursues this, we will support the government. So I hope more people can do this. I think I'm encouraged by what's happening around the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Lukman Sheriff,
Okay.
for giving your time. I know you're very, very busy, but I really appreciate your insights and your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam.